Welcome to the Salty Investors, episode number 39. It is Friday, July 7th.
Yep.
How are you? First week of the new financial year, Tim.
Oh, brilliant. Yourself?
Optimistic about the upcoming year? I mean, everything's looking up. RBA's on hold. I mean, what could go wrong?
Yeah. Just saw a cap rate on some property at Campbelltown at 1.25%. Imagine collecting that as your yield on your commercial property.
Oh, God. And, exactly at the time when we need more building to be done, there's no incentive to build anything. How about that? Yeah. Well, let's get straight into the salt, and I will kick it off because mine's got a little bit to do with building and lack of building. So this week, Roy Morgan came out with their 2023 wealth report, which showed that the lowest half of the population, who of course are primarily renters, saw their wealth rise by just 1% between March 2020, pre-COVID, and March 2023, compared to a 7% rise across the broader population, driven by, you guessed it, the rising value of owner-occupied homes, which increased 43% over the same period. So there's this just growing divide. Throw in the stupidity of Labor's policy of funneling more people in. There's this bifurcation, I think, in our economy. People who own their own homes or have got a small manageable mortgage doing just fine, and the rest are really doing it tough. Just to give you a flavour, rents are up in Sydney year over year, 12.9%, Melbourne 12.6%, Brisbane 10.6%, Perth 13.4%. And Albo's my immigration policy just going to make that worse.
Yeah. Oh, I was looking at the rents. I think CoreLogic put them out in Sydney. Yeah. The median is $600 a week. So if you do a 30%, that's what you should be maximum you should be spending on your rent. Yeah. The household's going to bring in $100,000. Like, yeah. Or if you've got a government job, both of you got government jobs or whatever. But
yeah,
crikey,
where'd you say that was? Where'd you say that was?
Sydney.
Did you say
CoreLogic?
Oh, right, because I've got the CoreLogic stuff up here now.
Okay.
Because that's what I was reading off those increases in rents. Yep. The median rent in Sydney is now $733. Okay. So I think you might have been the combined capital cities.
Combined might be, yeah.
Was $617.
Okay.
Right.
Yep.
So Sydney's actually, the median rent in Brisbane is higher than the median rent in Melbourne. Would you believe?
Yeah, and you can't even escape to the regional areas. Like, look at Darwin; it was $500 and something. Like you're in the middle of nowhere. And
yeah. See, the combined capital cities are $617. The combined regionals are $517. That's not exactly cheap, is it? $500 is the median rent in a regional area.
Yeah. But
of course, if you live in Canberra, where a lot of the people don't have to pay rent, their rents are down 3% over the last 12 months.
At least someone's, a third of the population's doing well, like you said, but, they own their own home, but the rest of it got huge mortgages. 2/3 have got huge mortgages or renting, and they're screwed. And you just can't see any change to it. Everyone's just accepting it now, and it's like, well, we're in for a few rough years. Like
the new normal. It's the new normal too. Yep.
People living under bridges, get used to it. See more of it. So,
yep. You might have to. You won't be able to upgrade your tarpaulin for another 12 months.
Living large. Yeah. Mine's.
So what do you?
Yeah, mine's similar. It's sort of like cost of living pressure. I'm like, who are some of these bastards that got us into this place? And I'm thinking, remember that caged eggs thing? Like, they got rid of that. Coles and Woolies, they want to get rid of caged eggs. All these couple of activists get in there and say, hey, like, we're sick of you choosing caged eggs. We want to just, tell you that you can't buy them at all. And now the cost of living's gone up and, all these poor people, especially in my neighbourhood, like, you can see them, they're cutting down on their meat purchases. There's heaps of meat, but there's never any eggs. Because eggs are still only about $7 a kilo, $6.50 a kilo compared to meat, which is a lot more expensive, and you can see people substituting already. And eggs are great. They've got heaps of vitamins, bioavailable. You know, kids sort of eat them. You can put them in a lot of dishes, but
Yep.
they've sort of screwed the lower end of the market like they always do. You know, people who make these decisions, obviously they don't care. They don't buy caged eggs. They don't need to make that decision where they need to find an extra $10 or $15 a week. And it's just a bit ironic now that, you know, these people are just hiding. Where are they now? Like, are they helping out these people that are, you know, trying to find this 10, 15, $20 a week? No.
Probably not. No, they feel virtuous, having, you know, once again triumphed in social justice. Look, used to be able to have bacon and eggs. Now it's just eggs. Sorry, it's eggs. Meat's too expensive, but you can still afford the eggs.
So these people think they've got brilliant ideas, and then when it gets tough, they're just nowhere to be found, you know, and then make all these rules for other people to abide by. Yeah, you could always choose if you wanted to buy caged eggs or not, you know. It wasn't like forcing you to buy them and you had to buy them, like you had a range to pick from. But no.
Just on that, I think this week, just another way to smash the poor, or not even the poor, but just, you know, the lower half of society is, I think this week coming into effect soon, there's an increase in excise on alcohol and tobacco.
Oh, no.
Which is, why not? You know, because, you know, we've got to raise revenue somewhere. We might as well raise it from the people who are doing it the toughest.
And fuel excise just keeps ticking up, and the GST on the fuel excise just keeps ticking over. Like, sucks to be poor, doesn't it? Like, fucking hell. Like,
but, you know, I mean, thankfully we have a prime minister who grew up in a housing commission home with a single mum, and so he understands all of that. He's woke to the problems of the lower half of society. I increasingly think that Albo's actually has a disdain for his past, even though he likes to bring it up. I think he's disgusted by it, and that's why he doesn't actually give a shit about the poor.
Yeah, well, the haircuts and the suits, you know, sort of.
Yeah, and the chinos. Yeah.
So I don't know. But yeah, it's not looking good. But yeah, I think, like you said, it's bifurcated economy now. I think you're feeling it, and we've got a couple of slides
more
coming
than
up.
ever.
Yep.
Yeah. We'll get into that, eh? So let's get to boring stuff out of the way. The RBA, as expected, the market mostly thought they were going to stand pat. They did. The usual sort of line here that they put out: further tightening may be required in a reasonable time frame. That'll depend on incoming data, blah, 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 blah. So nothing really new there. There's people out there saying this is it. They're done, which means, look out Australian dollar. If the Fed keeps rising, we're set. Jesus Christ, we'll be... we'll be below 50 cents on the US dollar. The market, the futures market still says there's at least one rise, possibly two, because they're projecting about 4.55, which is about 45 basis points. So it's almost two rises, 225 basis point rises. That's what the market's saying. I mean, they changed their mind like you change your undies. So, you know, who knows? But yeah, the market's at least pricing in one more. Who knows? As we see, you know, inflation is, the headline number is sawtooths up and down. The as we said last week, the sort of trim mean, the RBA or the core number, it is coming down. We've obviously peaked, but it's just coming down slower than the RBA would like. So I don't know. What do you reckon, Tim? Do you reckon they got another one up their sleeve, another two, or they're done?
The market reckons they're going to pause next month as well, which I think is a bit premature, but everyone thinks September. So I don't know if this is the market hoping, you know, this is the case, you know, and they just do one more in September and, you know, it'll come down enough. If it keeps coming down, they might be able to hold and, you know, and just do one more in September and that hopefully knock it over to a 3 number and they'll say, you know, they're done. But the problem happens then if they just leave it there and then it ticks back into a 4 number. If I hear transitory one more time, you know, like I'm going to lose my mind. Like, and surely Phil won't, you know, no one's going to buy that crap the second time
Yeah.
around. Like, so.
Well, I think the only thing that's transitory is the people that said it would be transitory. They've become transitory, but nothing else. Because it's pretty obvious that transitory was being bandied around in 2021. We're
23, yeah.
next year we're still going to have inflation year over year at over 4%, and we should note there that as far as economic pain is concerned, no one's forecasting interest rate cuts till well into next year.
Yep.
So, yeah, and we're still in the midst of. I mean, last quarter, I think was the peak, but this quarter there's still a hefty number of people going from low fixed rate mortgages to variable rates as well. That stuff's still going on.
Yep.
So yeah, more fun ahead as we predicted. This is also from Roy Morgan. This week we put up this chart before. It's got a bit worse. As you can see, the grey is people that are at risk, mortgage stress. Extremely at risk is the red. So it's not as bad as it was in the GFC. And September 2011, it's not even that bad. Macro Business did they put up another chart yesterday that showed if the RBA does go 2 more times, that number, that 28.8 number where we're at now, will go to 30. That's if the RBA goes 2 more times. And the other thing I think you should note is that going into the GFC, what's the difference here? Why was the GFC worse? Probably because going into the GFC, unemployment in Australia was about 4.2%. We came out the other side at 5.5, right?
Wow.
So we had, I mean, and to be fair, Australia did relatively very well compared to the rest of the world. I mean, you had over 10% unemployment in the US, but that increase in unemployment with 1 and a bit percentage points move, that would have been at least partly responsible for that number that you see there, that GFC high. So that's, as we've kept saying, that the final leg of the stool would be unemployment. As long as people keep their jobs here, they can cut back. But that number could soar into the 30s easily if we get a shift in unemployment of a percentage point or so. I mean, the RBA, remember, came out and said they'd like to see unemployment get to 4.5. Not exactly in those words, but that's basically what they said. And anything a little bit worse than that, that could really put the cat amongst the pigeons.
Yeah, I think everyone's not worried at the moment. You can see FOMO in the market because there's jobs. There's plenty of jobs and people are still switching and not too worried about it. So even though their mortgage payments, like, that's only 20% of people that are really doing it tough there. So 1 in 5 people, and they're still, 1 in 5 mortgage holders, but they're not worried because they've got a job. And all you do is just cut back a little bit, cut back your Netflix or whatever you want to do, and it's all fine. But at some point here, if it just ticks over a bit more and you've already cut back a lot of stuff, like and you've sold your boat and your freaking jet ski and all your junk, you start getting
You don't have
worried.
to even lose your job. You just, maybe it comes down to losing some hours. You had 40 hours of work and now the boss says, look, I only need you for 30. Or, you run your own business and that some of that starts to dry up, that's the way it works. Of course, most people will be fine as always, but it's that at the margin borrower, and that can have a ripple effect if you get enough of them. All right, so this is obviously, all this doom and gloom we've just been talking about. We got it completely wrong, Tim. I mean, look at this luxury vehicle sale. Well, how do you explain it? Explain this to me, Tim. Explain it to me.
Some people have said, maybe it's the Tesla type issue going on here, or the backlog from COVID. There's a couple of things that could be, but we're fair way on since COVID. I think some of that backlog has gone through the system. And they were only 1 year wait. So I don't know. It could be partly, maybe a third of it could be Tesla. But that is ridiculous. Like,
Well, I mean, maybe if you drew a trend line through there,
yep.
you'd probably only get to where it is, wouldn't you? Because that
Mm.
sort of post 2016 peak, yep, we had a correction, and now we're off to the races again. Do you think this is more evidence of the bifurcation, that the people at the top end are doing just fine? House prices have gone up. They've still got their jobs. Everything's rosy for them.
Yeah,
So
well,
why not
it'd be
buy a
nice
new
to
Audi?
see the bottom end of the market. What's a Camry doing, or a
Yeah,
Hyundai, a Getz or something. How well are they selling? Compared to brand new versions, compared to second hand. I don't know. Like,
yeah,
just doesn't seem. Yeah, it feels like that it's bifurcated. Like, if you've got
mm,
assets, you'd be feeling pretty good now. Like, if you've had real estate and
yeah,
stocks, that's where all the money's gone. Yeah,
yeah,
it's not called inflation in those things, like they don't really get counted. So,
yeah.
so, but yeah, if you feel rich, you're going to spend big. And, if it was going in the other
Mm.
direction, you didn't feel rich, you wouldn't be buying a luxury car. That's what I think. But,
Well, here's an interesting one. I got an Amazon delivery the other day, and the bloke pulled up in a BMW to deliver it. How's that? It was admittedly it wasn't a new BMW. It
okay.
was at least 5 or 6 years old, but yeah, that's a new one.
But
So
that's concerning
BMW
as well. Like,
drivers,
rich people just
yeah,
put them on the second-hand market that normal people can buy them because they've got that
mm,
much coin that they can buy the latest model. And they don't really
yeah,
care what they get the second-hand value for them because they want, so it's a bit concerning for society when you've got one part of it just flying away, low interest rates, like all this sort of stuff that's going on,
mm,
for a long period of time, and this is the results you get. Like, I remember back in 2000, I thought, what a stupid model. Why would you buy an Aston Martin or a BMW or, a Lexus or anything like that? Why would you just buy a
mm,
Toyota? Like, that's just crazy. But these dealerships have done exceptionally well over the last couple of decades, like way better than you think they would have, because
yeah,
low interest rates, um, just excess money at the top end of the market, and they can charge whatever they like. And
yep.
I don't know, it's not very good for society, I don't think. Like, so, but we have to wait and see.
All right, so there it is. Don't say we don't present you any contrary evidence on this show. We're always trying to second guess ourselves because, apart from the false confidence that we exude on this show, we are second guessing ourselves all the time. But yeah, that's enough of that. Let's get into this week's stock of the week, and it is Exponent. Give us a rundown, Tim.
For the last few months, Simon Barnard and Terry Smith have been building a secret position in the Smithson, which is like their small cap value fund.
Yep.
Currently, it's down 7% year to date, but it's up 5,000% since IPO compared to 1,200% for the S&P 500.
Wow.
Exponent is a consultant company mainly focused on science and engineering. They solve, really, really hard problems. For example, creating a smartwatch to diagnose certain health problems. So you
Right.
can imagine people like Samsung or Apple, outsourcing to these guys to go and try and, you know,
Or Elizabeth Holmes.
yeah, that sort of thing. Yeah, that's got like hundreds of PhDs working in this place to try and solve these
Mm.
impossible, and I don't know if realistic type, solutions to these problems, but they get paid to do
Mm.
it. If we look at the shares outstanding, it's definitely going in the right direction,
Yep.
and employees are going up slightly. Price to fee cash flow is 50. But 5 to 7 years ago it was in the 20s, so it
Mm.
does seem a little bit expensive. Um, Return on invested capital is just brilliant and have been consistent in the 20s, going back a long time.
Yep.
Gross margin's low, but most of it flows through the operating margin with the 20%, so
Yeah.
that's not a
Yep.
problem. We flick over to the balance sheet. We can see that it's got negative debt.
Wow.
So, and they've got a fair bit of cash. Cash flow is fairly good, but it's been hit recently due to the massive amounts of buybacks, and operating working capital is taking a bit of a hit. We look at the multiples on the next one.
Yeah. So this has had a significant repricing, hasn't it?
Yeah. So the multiples have clearly expanded here. And you've got all these high-tech companies wanting to outsource and the military and all these other people wanting to outsource and try to create new tech. So it is doing very well at the moment. Me personally, it does look very expensive, but Simon and Terry might know something here. It's got a little bit of insider selling, and the market is a bit worried about it currently due to the the high wages and and trying to fire them even in the early stage of recession is nearly impossible because you can't rehire them. So I can understand the pullback. It's only 10% pullback, but yeah, it's one of these high labor type, very skilled type markets. And if, tech companies have got heaps of coin to burn, to build little side projects, then increase their moat, well, this is one of the companies they go to get it done. But I just can't see what Simon and Terry are doing here myself personally.
Well, when did they start buying?
Well, just a couple of months ago. It's actually gone down and they've finished their allocation now because they were keeping it to themselves. I don't know why they were keeping it to themselves, like it's sort of multiples, but they've done it time and time again with these high multiples. So maybe they see a lot more growth going forward, but it's just hard. If you're in the hard landing camp, you're like, fuck, how do you see that much growth coming forward? Like, surely you'd be looking a bit of a flat growth from here on out, sort of, best case scenario, like a 6 or a 7 or 8% EPS growth. You look at the multiple, you're like, wow, it's insane.
There's a lot priced in. Yeah. Well, that's the other thing we didn't include this week because I didn't want to take up too much time, but all 10, or is it 10 components of the ISM manufacturing index in the US turn negative. So that doesn't happen very often. And suggests that, well, no landing is off the table, definitely, but that sort of points to more of a hard landing. It's only one indicator, but yeah, that's the thing here, and it's the same problem I'm trying to look at retail stocks in Australia. When does the cycle turn? And actually, of course, you want to invest before the cycle turns, and that's dependent on how deep the cycle goes, the bottom. And yeah, it's the same for a lot of these things. We talked about James Hardie months ago, and it's already run 50%, as though, and it's got a big exposure to the US housing market. And okay, people see that most of the trouble there is over. Don't know,
Yeah. Well, you got to pick a side, and a lot of people have. I see people are selling SPY, and obviously they're going into other names. Like selling SPY is like a pretty big deal. It's not like you're saying, I know what's better than the index. That's retail. So when retail starts doing that, they're in a bullish mood. So. But here, like if it corrected back down into the 20s, you go, oh well, that's obvious, like this is the problem I've got. I'm like, it's just, I don't know why now he's decided to buy it. Like why wasn't he buying it at 18? Why didn't he build a position back then? It still had great metrics back then, but I don't know why. It just seems extremely high now. That's all. So, but these guys, they do homework, like. Like it's not like me, like these guys.
It's pretty safe to say that they are seeing something that we are not, isn't it?
Yeah, I just can't see it. So if anybody knows what they're seeing, I've asked other people, and it's just not covered enough, like.
Is there broker coverage on this?
Maybe I just like in my circles, I asked, and then it's like just nothing,
nothing.
Because it's not capital light as well. Like it doesn't really fit our normal mold. But that can be a great opportunity, like staff is an asset. I know what the sort of normal.
Yeah, well, I mean, if it's staff, it's not like people on an assembly line you can just swap out. I mean, if it's people with highly specialized skills, then it's a valuable
Yeah.
you know,
Asset, yeah.
piece of the business to have. Yeah.
Yeah, and you can't just replicate that, with AI or whatever. You can't do all that sort of stuff. So yeah, it's just another one that, it's good to learn about these things and how they sort of work. I just can't see too much of a moat. I know they've got a little bit of IP and they got good staff, but if these tech companies decide to pull back on their R&D spend, this thing's toast. Like, this is going to go down hard. But
Yep.
but if you know about it and you can see that cycle happening, well, that's when you should be buying it, I think. But Terry and, Simon might see something differently. Phone me.
Is it? I don't know, because everything now. Oh, do they have exposure to AI? Which I think this is just another bubble forming that everybody's going to be disappointed by in the end, including Nvidia investors. But presumably this is getting some buoyancy from that. I don't know.
Well, they are doing in the Apple. I think they're doing the Apple Watch and things like that. If they can add to the moat on Apple there, like, you can see why Apple want to invest in this area, because it just knocks out Samsung and all the other, Garmin and all these other people. Why would you buy something that's, inferior? And if you could tell that you're going to get a heart attack, or, you got low blood pressure or something like that, you can see why people would want to stick in Apple, and because you're getting all this extra tech added in that no one else can do, and it's got patents and all that that'll get sent over to Apple and adds to their moat, and Apple have got like cash to burn, so that's why these companies do well. Like, if you've got to burn a heap of cash, send it over here. That's what they've done.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
All right, we will leave it there, folks. You've seen it here, Exponent, and we will see you next week.